Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of joining you all this evening as we hear an irreverent history of Rick Steves Europe from Rick Steves himself. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn things over to our tour guide for this evening, Rick Steves. Rick, over to you.
Thank you, Gabe, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you're doing well. I want to remind you also that this is just such a treat for us to be able to gather with you every Monday and just celebrate our love of travel. You know, for me, I'm just hungry to have people over, and we're almost there. But I look forward to Monday nights because, I got 3,000 or 4,000 people popping in. I've been busy all afternoon preparing. I'll show you what I've been cooking. This is going to be a different evening than most because I'm not going to be cobbling together a bunch of videos. I'm going to be showing a PowerPoint that goes way back in our history, back to the 70s and the 80s, and kind of reminisce. But I just want to thank you for being here. I hope that you can feel cozy and right at home. I hope you got your favorite travel partners with you. We're all about stoking travel dreams. You know, we're going to be traveling pretty soon. So I hope you got your drinks and your munchies, and we're going to just head out. Now, normally at this time, I'll go into the Classroom Europe and put together a bunch of videos. But right now, I'm just going to go over and show some slides. That's normally what I do. I'm in Europe for 100 days out of the year. And then all my life, when I come home, I travel around the country and give PowerPoints, slideshows. And I haven't been able to do that. In fact, this is one of the first times I've given an actual PowerPoint presentation in the last year. So I'm looking forward to it. And I hope you are too. Before we get into that, I want to introduce you to our cuisine for the evening. It is Sicilian. That's the island at the end of Italy there. You know, if Italy's the boot, that is the football. And we went to our local Sicilian restaurant. It's called La Medusa. And about 10 years ago, the owner of La Medusa, which had a great following, decided to sell, and his chef and the sous chef bought it, and the place stays alive. And today it's just beloved in Seattle. I hope you've got a Sicilian restaurant or an Italian restaurant in your town that you like and that you can support. And what we got from La Medusa is, I'm just excited about this. This is, look at that. That is squid ink spaghetti with puttanesca sauce. Oh, and I'm going to be munching on that. And puttanesca sauce is very spicy, capers and anchovies and olives. And we're also going to go very Sicilian with the arancino. And that is here a fried rice ball with some beautiful marinara sauce, and then little meatballs, fish meatballs. There you go. And I'll be eating those. And, you know, I'll be talking about this. And it occurred to me just a couple of days ago, normally on Monday Night Travel, I can, while the video is playing, munch on my food. But now I'm going to be eating and talking. So I want to apologize now, but I've got to have my dinner. And you're looking at me and there's nobody else talking. So I'm going to be talking and munching and drinking. And I hope you can be munching and drinking too. What else? We got a puree of fava beans. Fava beans are a big deal in Italy and Sicily. And I had fun making this. It's a puree of fava beans with chicory on the top. Most tourists, and I know this from 25 years of tour guiding, they think this chicory is actually spinach. And then they eat it and they're in for quite a shock. It's more bitter than spinach, but it's quite good. The finale, if you're in Sicily, you know what that is. Cannolo. Cannoli is two. I've just got one. Cannolo. Okay, so that's it. And I'm going to be drinking some good Sicilian wine. And this is from a winery called Nanfro. It's kind of a wine called Samauro from a place called Vittoria. And this is a blend. It is half Frappato and half Nero d'Avola, 50-50. And my goal is to finish this bottle tonight. I got 2 Monday Night Travels to do it, so I should be okay. Yeah, and we are ready to go. So I'm going to right now go to my PowerPoint, and we're going to start right off with an old hippie banner. Look at that, Europe through the back door. That was our little logo for a long time, and we had that hang on the back of our bus in the early days. But you know, when I didn't, as I always remind people when they ask me how'd you get started and so on, I never wanted to go to Europe. My parents dragged me to Europe because my dad imported pianos from Germany and Austria. And this is one of the only shots I've got from that early trip. I was 14 years old. You can guess which person is me in this crowd. And my mom is the woman in the blue there. The man on the far left, I'll never forget him. He got me into just the wonder of history. We sat down, we went to church in this dusty little village right on the border of Hungary. And afterwards, we walked across the dusty square into the wine garden, and we smeared rustic lard on rustic bread, and we drank crude local wine, and everybody told stories. It's a multi-generational gathering, and he just blew me away with his stories. He said he witnessed the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 that kicked off World War I. I don't know if that was true or not, but it was a good story. The man behind me is the man that sold those pianos, the Börsendorfer pianos. So we've got those couple of trips I did with my parents. And then this is the day after I graduated from high school in 1973. My buddy, Gene Openshaw, who co-authors a lot of our best books. I just love working with Gene. We got the biggest backpacks we could find. I had my tube tent. I had my mess kit. I had an REI squeeze tube of peanut butter. I was packing heavy, and we were trucking. And then we got over there, and life just changed. We got to hang out with communists in Yugoslavia. We realized that I want to go through the back door. And this is I had to think about shooting photographs of back doors. And this is the castle of King Arthur in Tintagel. And I just found it so evocative because you got that coastline of southwestern England behind me. And I just used that as the cover of my book for a while, that very door. But this was the book I wrote in 1980, self-published. It was so crude that when people looked at it, they said, when's the actual finished version going to come out? I didn't even know what an ISBN was. I published it without an ISBN. But that was the first book I ever wrote, self-published it, 2000, it cost me $2,000, and I would sell it out of the back of my car. I was a piano teacher back then, and I had 50 great students. And this is one of my German pianos my dad imported. And suddenly I had a guidebook, and I was using my recital hall for travel lectures as well as piano teaching. I love piano teaching. In fact, I think I'm going to share something right now. I'm going to just fancy it up here. I want to show you a video I made just at the opening of the whole COVID lockdown. And I've spent a lot of time on the piano during COVID. And sitting down here, I made a little 3-minute lesson about how to improvise on the blues scale on the piano. And a man came into my dad's piano store when I was working there once after school when I was a teenager. And he showed me in about an hour how I could improvise on the blues scale. And it was the best hour of teaching I ever had, and I've been able to share it with my students. But when I look at this, it occurs to me, I love teaching piano. So here's just a little trip down piano teacher memory lane. And any of you who can play a scale can play the blues scale, and then you can improvise. Check this out. I just love the blues scale. It's about 3 minutes. Hey, I'm Rick Steves, and I'm supposed to be flying to Istanbul this week, but I'm staying home like so many of you. And if there's a silver lining in this coronavirus cloud, it's that we have a chance to dust off old passions and kind of remind ourselves there's more to life than being productive. And the only other job I've had my whole life was being a piano teacher. I paid for all my first trips as a piano teacher. And my grand piano was my first big production. I had a piano before I had a car. And, for a mediocre musician, this is a great trick. And I'm just a mediocre musician, and there's a fun way to impress your friends. It's called the blues scale. And I want to share that with you right now. The blues scale is just 6 notes. C, E flat, F, G flat, G, B flat, C. In the key of C, that's the blues scale. And if you could imagine that the whole piano is just the blues scale. Now, I've been improvising on the blues scale for this whole little moment I've been talking with you. And if you can tie your blues scale in with a cool bass, like this one, C, B flat, A flat, G. bass line like heart and soul. C, A, F, G. Or a walking bass. I love a walking bass. C, C, and then up to 4, back down to 1, and 5, 4. And then you bring in your blues scale on the top. So, I don't know the name of that song, but we could call it Sunshine on a Coronavirus Afternoon. And the message, I'd say, is even if we're self-isolating at home, we can dust off some old passions and enjoy some happy travels. Take care. And remember, the blues scale is freedom. I really enjoyed teaching piano. I miss it. I enjoyed teaching my kids when they were little. And I'm so thankful I got my piano here. And during COVID, I spent a lot of time on it. Hey, that gave me a little chance to eat. And I am really pleased with the squid ink spaghetti with the puttanesca sauce that I made. Let me just introduce it to you. Because when you travel in Italy, remember, Italy is the size of California. And it's got a lot of coastline. There's a lot of seafood. And they love the flavor of the sea. And when you mix in a little bit of squid ink into your spaghetti and cook it up, it's got that briny flavor. You feel like you're eating a little bit of the sea. So squid ink pasta, there's all different kinds of pasta. Don't worry about it. Try it. You'll have it in Italy. You'll see it and don't shy away from it. It's just more earthy from a sea point of view. And this sauce, puttanesca, nobody knows for sure. Puttanesca is a slang word for prostitutes or sex workers in Italy. And, some people say, oh, the prostitutes would make it. It's from Naples. Also, puttanesca means just the pile of junk, like all the crap in your closet, puttanesca. And it's very, very spicy. I'm loving it. Capers, olives, anchovies, and so on. And this is just delightful. That is puttanesca sauce on my squid ink spaghetti. Okay. And it goes nice with the wine. Let's go back to that slideshow. Where was I? I was teaching piano in our little studio. Okay. Well, as a piano teacher, my kids wouldn't practice in the summer. And I thought, I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to Europe. So I'll see you in September. And I'd go to Europe. I couldn't afford to go to Europe. So I got 15 or 20 people together and we went on a Cosmos tour. And if I sold 15 seats, the local travel agent would give me a free flight and a seat on that tour. So that was Cosmos. It's a company to this day. It's sort of a low end budget, big bus tour company, just a typical big bus tour company. And there we are, bus number 3112 or whatever that number is. And I had these groups. So those were the first groups I took. I wasn't an official guide. I was just the escort that got the free trip by talking all these people and joining me on a Cosmos tour. And we all had our hard rolls. I always told people, if you got a craving for an American breakfast, beat it to death with a hard roll. So here's your hard roll now. Shut up and have a good time. All right. And then we took the boat across the English Channel long before there was a tunnel. And this is where all the tourists would pile in. These are all Cosmos tourists coming in from London. And they all have a 4-digit number for the bus they're supposed to get. And then you pile onto your bus. And there it is, 50 people, in this case, a little more, but 50 people on a 50-seat bus. Every day you move up 1 seat. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. Well, I spent a lot of time hanging out with the bus driver and learning tricks. Oh, I could write a whole book about the tricks that I learned. And what I did, I was the subversive pain in the neck for this tour guide, because tour guides on a typical cheap big bus tour are not paid other than just a token wage. They make their money off of their tourists by taking them shopping for kickbacks, selling them sightseeing for a commission, and angling for tips. So I had a third of the group, a third of that big bus of 50 people. And when it was time to sell a tour so the guide could make some money, they'd all look at me and say, you don't need to pay $25 for that. Follow me. We'll just get a tram ride and we'll go right down to the beer hall ourselves. We'll have more fun for 10% of the cost. So I was not a good friend of the tour guide because I was denting his income for all of his hard work. But I was learning how to have fun with people who were traveling in Europe that needed some guidance. And I was getting all sorts of tricks. I was also inspired by the lame experiences people have when they're on a big bus tour. I mean, this is in Tangiers in Morocco. And these people are going in on a tour from southern Spain, from the coast del Sol. They got one day in their life in Africa. It's in Morocco. They're having lunch here with other Americans. And they're just having, it's the tourist restaurant in town. And, they got a belly dancer, but that's not even Moroccan. And this particular belly dancer is kind of I don't know, just sort of a cross between Boy George and a belly dancer. And I don't know, it just didn't seem like a very real experience to me. I was just thinking, there's got to be a better way. I mean, people, the rest stops were designed for tour buses, and they were designed for kickbacks for the drivers and the tour guides, and they were designed so 50 people could go to the bathroom at the same time, and they could buy all their little knickknacks. And it just seemed to me a shame. And I was friends with these people that took these tours, and they were dear people that worked and scrimped and saved. And this is the culmination of a lifetime at travel dreaming. It's their retirement trip, and they were clipping articles out of the travel section of the newspaper. And now here they are in Vienna, listening to local musicians play the Strauss waltz in a palace. Ha, that's what it was advertised. That's what it is. It's the Kursalan, a former palace. Local musicians, retired musicians that can play the Blue Danube nonstop all day long, talking to each other as they perform, as tour groups come and go unnoticed all day long. That was their Viennese high cultural experience. I just thought, there's got to be a better way. This was bland travel, and I didn't want to be part of bland travel. So I kept thinking about how can this be a better experience, a better value, and also good business. And I was thinking of all the fun I had been having. I mean, becoming a guest of honor at a Greek wedding festival, right there in the front stump, dancing and drinking and eating with new Greek friends. Why couldn't my groups do that? There's not a tourist in sight here. It's just me and a bunch of Greeks. Finding these back doors. I found these ruined castles that you had to hike up to that no tour groups would go to. They were just yours, alive with the winds of the past. My goodness. And it was a period in my career where I was discovering these places that now most of us who have traveled with me know and love. Civita di Bagnoregio. By the way, I'm going to try a little arancino here. And this is this rice ball, and it's fried, and it's got, it can have meat, or it could have ham in the middle of it, or cheese. This has cheese in the middle of it, and it's sort of saffron colored, and it's fried. And Italians love these things. These there's a closer up look of it. These arancini. It's not my favorite thing. It's kind of a gut bomb, but it's fast food in Italy, and it does a service. I was finding these kind of places. Look at that. We could hike up there and have an amazing experience. Cinque Terre. Whoa. We could go there. This was before there was much tourists there. So I thought I could get groups together. And the first trips were so cheap. It was sort of a communal adventure. We were just a gang of friends, and I was organizing it so I could stay in Europe longer and cover my costs. And it was 8 people on a minibus and me driving. That was it. That was the first tours of Rick Steves Europe in the mid 1970s, before I'd written a guidebook. And this is the street I still work on right now, 4th Avenue in Edmonds. And people would actually come and try out for a seat on the tour. I had to interview if I was going to let you on my bus, because I was going to be stuck with you for 22 days. That's what we did, 22-day tours. And I had wonderful people that joined us, and I did all the driving. I'm just kidding. I wasn't drinking, but sometimes I felt like I needed to. But I was driving. I had my headphones on so I could be lost in my music, it was generally just women that were on the tour, so they would ignore me and have a great time. If I looked in my rearview mirror, this was the view. We would get up early, we would stay out late, and we would just cover a lot of ground, and people would sleep while we drove. And that was just really the formula for starting a great tour company. I was all about experiences. I mean, I always had these Leyland buses in England. They're very top-heavy buses, that tin cans with four wheels that ramble down the road. But one thing nice about them, they had a big rack on the roof. And if we were going through a place that was really atmospheric, place, you know, tiny roads under oak trees that Admiral Nelson used for the masts of his ships and so on, we would get up on the roof. Somebody would take turns driving, and we would just be immersed in all that history and culture. And I was loving it. I was absolutely loving it. Again, we were all in it together. It was so cheap, nobody could complain about anything. We were staying in hostels. We would wash our clothes together. This is the youth hostel we stayed at in Gimmelwald up in Switzerland. And just beautiful memories. I used to take people to the circus tent in Munich. And this is a big circus tent, 400 people sleeping there. It was a cross between Woodstock and a slumber party. And we'd go to the beer hall, and we'd just park our van, go to the beer hall. We're all, you got to say, we've drunk a lot of beer. And then I didn't know how to get to the tent except to follow the tram that I went on as a backpacker. So we followed the tram line, number 16 or whatever, out to the big circus tent. And then they'd give us our mattresses and our blankets, and we'd kind of corral our valuables, and we'd be in the middle of that tent. Got to remember, I mean, I got to say, it was pretty rough travel. I had this, you know, right now I'm interested in affordable housing. Back then I had this cruel attitude that I should inflict horrible accommodations on Americans so they would better appreciate the roof over their head than when they get home, and they'd be more sensitive to people who were struggling and homeless. That was not a smart way to make that point, but I believed in that for a while. I remember one night with one of our groups, we were here, and in the middle of the night, I woke up, and a girl next to me from my tour was sitting cross-legged on top of her blanket, and she was just kind of bouncing up and down and sobbing. And she looked at me and she said, "Rick, I'm not handling this so very well." And I gave her some Valium, and she went back to sleep. But all I had back then in my first aid kit was Valium to calm people down in the accommodations that I gave them. That's a long time ago. We would stop and we'd have picnics. We were expert at picnics right there at the foot of Mad King Ludwig's castle. And I would expose all sorts of people to the wonders of European cuisine. Just really, really, picnicking was something I was passionate about. And it was high cuisine in a picnic format. It really was a fun way to travel. Occasionally, we'd have the option to skip lunch, and we'll have a lunch, but not take any time to do it, have it on the bus. And I would ask the group, if you want to accomplish more, let's have a rolling lunch. And they would say, sure. So they would take turns making the sandwiches and passing them around, and I would drive, and we would save an hour by driving that way. Top of the Schilthorn, hike up there. Back then, we didn't have money to take the lifts. We'd actually hike up and hike down. I'll tell you more about why it was only women that took my tours, but for years, it was rarely more than one guy on the bus. And the women were on the lookout for European guys. We saw this good looking Swiss guy hitchhiking, and they all said, pick him up, pick him up. And I said, only if he will teach us how to yodel. So we stopped and asked him if he wanted to ride. He said, sure. And I said, well, you got to teach us how to yodel. So he took us, we took him over to the side of the road, and he stood there and looked out at the mountains, and he yodeled so beautifully. And I'll just never forget the beautiful moment we had. As a matter of fact, I would like to, I've yodeled over the years. That was a long, long time ago. Let me show you I was on that same road just a couple of years ago doing one of our tours. I was leading our My Way Best of the Alps tour. And I was all nostalgic about Christoph and teaching us how to yodel. And a lot of times I would just burst into yodel. I'm not going to yodel right now. I'm just starting this nice bottle of Sicilian wine, but I've got just a quick little YouTube video. And I'd like to play this for you. I was on the bus leading one of our My Way tours from all across the Alps just a couple of years ago. And I decided I would share with my group the yodel I learned 35 years before that. Here is how Christoph yodeled and how I like to yodel, remembering Christoph's lesson. Yoduli,
Yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la 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 la. And then you ovulate. I mean, then you modulate. Yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la 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 la. Faster, modulate. Yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la la la, yodelotio, 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 tio, la la la, yodelotio, tio, la 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 la. Thank you, Krista.
Taro. Oh, man. Driving through the Swiss Alps, you just want to yodel sometimes. I can't help it. I'm sorry about that. Still enjoying my Italian food. I want to introduce you to my fava bean puree. And fava beans are a big deal in Italy. One of my favorite guides, Tom Rankin, who runs a wonderful company called Scala Reale in Rome, never forget, on an early tour, I was sitting with Tom with a group, taking one of his tours. And people were sitting on the stairs of a big church somewhere in downtown Rome. He pulled a bunch of fava beans out of his coat pocket, handed out these fava beans, and we all broke them open. And fava beans are like broad beans. I think we call it broad beans in England anyways. And they're like big peas in pods. And you break it open when it's in season. It's one of these only in season things. And then you squeeze it out and that beautiful little bean comes out and you pop it into your mouth. And Tom said, for 2,000 years, Romans have been breaking open these fava beans and popping them into their mouth. And this is a puree with fava beans. And it's got chicory. Now this chicory, it's got a little pecorino cheese on it, but the chicory is, I think it's called curly endives if you had it in English, but it looks just like spaghetti. I mean, spinach. And oh, sweet spinach, this is going to be so nice. And then you go, oh man, that is bitter. But if you go bitter chicory and you put it in your mouth, then it doesn't jolt you, and it's quite good. I just love that. And that's something you can remember, chicory and fava beans, when you are in Italy, especially in Sicily. Okay, let's go back to our little tour. And we will, with our little minibus, it was cool because we could drive down dirt roads and we can stop to ask a farmer a question, even if we knew the answer. We just wanted to see the glitter in his eye and hear his beautiful voice. You notice it really was a woman's world on a Rick Steves tour for several years. And, I charged a extra fee for men. No, I think women signed up on the tours because they wanted to have that adventure that the guys were having, but they didn't feel comfortable having it. So together, we could do the things that they wouldn't be comfortable doing alone, and they could travel in that more adventurous way. But I just had great, great groups. I remember that group really well. Actually, I remember that group really well too. Yeah, I remember that group. He remembers that group. So it was called the Girls of Rick Steves, and we'd come into these every 3 weeks. We'd come in to a new place, and there were offbeat places that didn't see tourists. And after a while, this one town, this is in Bognareggio, the little town next to Civita, the local soccer team literally would be waiting at the hotel in the bar for our girls to come in. And the soccer team would be there, and the girls were getting a kick out of it, and the guys were doing all sorts of disrespectful, not okay things, but everybody seemed to have a good time. But it got out of hand, and tour after tour were coming, and finally we went into this is Angelino who ran this hotel, and down in his basement, it was called the Cantina. And we'd, stick coins in the gooey ceiling, and it's trinka, 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 and he'd take this crude wine right out of the cask. And it got really out of hand. So we had to stop the entire thing. And Those are just how you used to do tours in Europe 40 years ago. We got more and more people packing onto those minibuses. We were having a good time. It really got out of hand. And finally, by this is not Europe. Who knows where this is? It's on the border between Iran and Afghanistan. And that was public transit right there. Wow, that was a trip. That's a different slideshow. I'll do that someday on Monday Night Travel. My trip from from Istanbul to Kathmandu. But our minibuses were getting really crowded. Not that crowded, but they're getting crowded. So we went from 8 people on a minibus, which you really can't do much about the Leaning Tower with just 8 people, to 16 people, and eventually to 24 people. Now we've got 28 people. In post-COVID, we're going to go back down to 24, so we have more room on the bus. But 24 people on a bus, that's a nice amount of people. And is a more social room. I mean, 8 people on a minibus, if there's any tension in the group, everybody knows it. With 24 people on the bus, you've got room. You've got the whole back end of the, I mean, there's 2 seats for every person. That's a real nice size of a group. And we had an arrangement with our bus drivers who they would go where bus drivers don't normally go, because my whole experience was minibuses. And we would climb it, we would go. I just loved not having to drive. It was safer. I could do my guiding with my mic, a high, safe ride. This is a cool shot because this is the parking lot in Rothenburg on der Tauber. Very, very touristy. And when we'd come in the middle of the day, I was always stressed out because there might not be a place to park the bus. There's so many tourist groups in town. But at night, all the tour groups were back in Frankfurt or Munich, Wiesbaden. And it was just, if I forgot something and I had to go back out to the tour bus parking lot, it was just my bus all alone in the floodlit parking lot. That's what I like. I like to stay in towns where we are the only group in town. And we do that to this day. It is not uncommon to go to a place with lots of tourism, but nobody spends the night except us because we really want to be rambling the ramparts when there's no tourists there. I love our bus drivers. We've had so many great bus drivers over the years. And eventually, it was a big step to do tours without Rick Steves as the guide. And I really actually believe that it couldn't be a Rick Steves tour without Rick Steves as the guide. I'm telling you, we've got 100 amazing guides. And my guides, people just are hell-bent on going with me because they like the TV show. But if you know what's good for you, you don't want me as your guide. You want one of our expert guides. They've got, they speak the language. They specialize in one country. I'm the generalist. So that was a growing pains of Rick Steves Europe. We started doing more tours than I could do, and we started doing different countries. This was our first tour outside of Europe, Best of Europe and Britain, and this was down to Spain. And there's Dave Herline and Mike McGregor, 2 of our wonderful early guides. And this is a trip up to Scandinavia. And we have to deadhead our buses from Belgium all the way up to Scandinavia for that Rick Steves Europe tour. All of our tours were 22 days. I was on a one-man crusade to help Americans have a shorter vacation. That was my goal in work. And I lost it. And finally, my staff told me, hey, if we want to sell tours, we're going to have to accommodate the American vacation. We have the shortest vacations in the rich world. Can't always go 22 days. But in the beginning, that was it. This is the granddaddy of our tours. This is the tour I'm going to do, God willing, when we come out of this COVID. Our best, it's 20 days now, but it's that Best of Europe route, starting in Amsterdam, doing all the best 3,000 miles in 20 days Europe has to offer, and finishing in Paris. This was our early tour handbooks. And the handbooks were designed so people could use their free time. And I had this hanging around in my lectures when I was giving a lecture, and I'd spread it out on the stage, edge of the stage. And I'd hope during the break that people would see the book, page through it, and like and take the tour. I really trusted the people in my classes. I never checked ID for checks or anything like that. And time after time, people were stealing this book, the handbook. They weren't supposed to take it. They would steal it. And it occurred to me, this book was driving decent people to theft. It should be available for purchase. This was the advent of our Rick Steves guidebook program. This book right here, that wasn't for sale, causing people to steal it. I could understand somebody wanting to steal it because it is so full of wisdom. It's how we do our tours. So the next year, I made Europe in 22 days, as you see on the left, available for sale, $3.50. That's the same route right there. And what I did, honestly, was dump everything I know about the tours into the book so you can do the Rick Steves tour without me. That was the goal. Put all the information there, try to ruin my tour business by giving everybody all the secrets. And what it did was it stoked the tour company, and it it just gave birth to a whole line of guidebooks for people who want to do the tours, who wanted to do the tours without taking a group. So that was self-published on the left. And then I got a publisher, John Muir, and Europe in 22 days. And it was, the same exact thing. On Tuesday, you do this and you leave at 9 o'clock and you get to Anne Frank's here and so on. And then it became 2 to 22 days, a little more flexible. And then we have all these 2 to 22 day guidebooks for every place in Europe. And these are all the tours we did. And these books doubled as the handbooks for the tours and the opportunity for people to spend $6.95 and do our tours without us. And then my publisher said, we got to get rid of the 22-day concept. And we still have the ghost of those tours right there in these books. When I think about it, Arthur Frommer, I loved Arthur Frommer's books when I was a kid. Europe on $5 a day, and then Europe on $10, $15, $20, $50 a day, or whatever. But he took care of our money. What I was doing here, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was taking care of your time. Your time is a precious resource, just like your money. So Arthur took care of your money. I take care of your time and your money. And we know that time is a precious resource and Americans need to be smart about that. So these books take care of your time and they give you that opportunity to do the tour without us. And to this day, we give people the guidebook for the tour because we want people to be independent on their own time. We want people to be punctual. We will literally leave you if you're not on the bus when you're supposed to be on the bus. Right there, it says 11:33. If we're leaving at 11:40, we're rolling out of there 11:40, and you better be on the bus. And that little bit of terror helped us accomplish a lot that other tour groups could not accomplish. In about 1990, I got myself on TV with my first TV show, or the people that started our show got me on TV. And that was a real boon to our tour business because more people learned about our program. And it really took a lot of my time. Ever since 1990, I've spent a third of my days in Europe making TV shows. It takes 6 days to produce one of our shows. We probably produced 150 shows over the years. And that's been just a fun opportunity. What I do now when I'm in Europe for 100 days is divide my time in 3 things: leading tours or working on the tour program, making TV shows, and updating the guidebooks. That's the foundation. And our business just works that way. We've got 3 major things: tours, guidebooks, and TV. And none of them could manage without the others. They all subsidize each other. Our TV shows are free for public television. We couldn't do that if we didn't make money with the tours. Our guidebooks, they give us all the experience so we can make our TV shows. The guidebooks, we don't really make enough money on them to sustain that. We reinvest all the money on most of the money on our royalties back into research. And the tour company helps subsidize that. So it all just works together. I'm so thankful for this system of that sort of symbiotic relationship of guidebooks, tour buses, and TV shows. And what I get to do is go to all the cheesy new activities, like these Disney-esque kind of rides through York or whatever. And I got to take it because I can't just say it's terrible. I got to take it and find out if it is good and with your time and money. And a lot of times it is, sometimes it's not. But that's what I do when I'm over in Europe for 100 days out of the year, checking these things out, going back to the hotel, and tapping it all into my guidebook. Finding places to take our groups, ruined castles where we can hike up like this. We run a tight ship so that, if we see a friendly cow on the side of the road, we can stop and get to know them. And all over Europe, we had our beautiful buses, our wonderful drivers. Here we are in the fjords of Norway. I think what happens here is we stop and we let everybody hike downhill for half an hour. And then later the bus will come by and pick them up. And it's just, with a tour bus, you can be efficient. You can do things you could never do on your own with a given amount of time. For me, a guide is the first servant. I mean, we're pouring people juice. We're running ahead and getting their tickets. We're letting them get on the boat, and then we're meeting them at the end of the boat ride with a picnic spread out under the tree. It's just so much fun to be able to scramble and try to make these tour experiences really efficient and relaxed and fun for people. I really want to take the anxiety out of the travel. That's one thing we want to do with our tour buses. This is a very early tour when we're just getting used to having a big bus, lots of empty seats, and a chance for our guides to teach. That's what guides should do, not scam their income, but guides should be fully paid up front. Our guides are the best paid guides in Europe. Up front, they don't net out the best. They're about the same as others, but they don't have to hustle for it. Other guides are paid a token wage and they make their money, as I said earlier, by tips, kickbacks, and commissions. Well, we don't have any kickbacks on your shopping. We don't have any commissions on your sightseeing. It's all included. We don't allow tips on our tours. The guides are your friend from the start, and a sophisticated traveler, our tour consumer, knows that a cheaper tour is not always cheaper. Ours cost a little more in the beginning, but when all the dust settles, ours cost no more than the others, and the guide is your friend. The guide's on your side. You're not parked out in the middle of nowhere and kept in the dark so you'll buy a tour. You're right downtown where you want to be. I love sitting our groups down on a bunch of broken pieces of the Roman Empire and explaining the rise and fall of Rome right there. That's when people are curious about it. I love taking people to their first Gothic cathedral. And before we go in, explaining what Gothic is all about. This is what our guides do. This is what a good tour should do. One of my favorite things is building a Gothic cathedral out of tourists. Here we got, it takes 13 tourists, 6 columns, 6 buttresses. These are flying buttresses, by the way. Their support is flying in with arches. You can see those arms going up together to come together. Those are called ribs architecturally. These are ribs, forget the elbows, and they come together. And when you have a round arch, the weight of the spire pushes the walls down, and they have to be really stout, and you can't hold a lot of windows. But if you have a pointed arch, the weight of the spire and the roof pushes out, not down. So you don't need strong walls, you need good buttresses. So you got your pointed arches. That means you can have the walls, everything between those guys there, filled with glass, beautiful stained glass. You got your buttresses holding it all together. And then when your wiry, strong, light person on the tour hoists herself up, and you've got that spire, you've got a good, solid construction. And that is the essence of Gothic architecture. And if you're ever having a party and it's just not going over very well, you could say, hey, let's build a Gothic cathedral. It's really fun. And then you step into the Gothic cathedral and you look at that and you realize, now I get it. That's pretty cool. I understand Gothic, the triumph of the Middle Ages. And it's a wonderful improvement over Romanesque. Imagine being able to step into this building and nudge your partner and say, isn't this a glorious improvement over Romanesque? We like to make the history and narrative fun. If you want to demonstrate medieval warfare and you need a battering ram, there's always a guy on the tour that deserves to be your tool. This is my friend Gene, who I mentioned earlier, was my buddy when I was 18. He was 17, went to Europe on our Europe Through the Gutter trip. And Gene's one of our guides and co-authors, and Gene has inspired us all to teach the art better. Gene and I wrote 2 art books, Europe 101 and Monowinks. Europe 101 is the basis of the series I'm writing right now. I'm really deep into a project with Gene, and we're writing a 6-hour mini-series on Europe's history, or Europe's art and architecture. Just this week, just a couple of days ago, I finished Kenneth Clark's amazing civilization series from the 70s, I think, 60s. It's from the 60s. Very patrician, very slow, very elegant. But I love it. And it inspired me when I was a kid, and I just watched it again, and it inspires me again. But we're going to update that and have a fun, inspiring 6-hour swing through art history like we did in Europe 101. Monowinks, that was self-guided tours to Europe's 20 most exhausting and frightening cultural obligations. And it would give you all these tours, like, it would give you a tour of the Grand Canal in Venice. And we turned that into an audio app. It's free, an audio guide. It's an app called Rick Steves Audio Europe, and you got 60 tours. Just pop me in your ear and you got free tours anywhere in Europe. But as a tour guide, I loved to angle my group so we could have the empty vaporetto, and we would take over the front, and I would sit up there and I would bark out the palaces and the bridges and the stories as we went by, as we wound our way through the Grand Canal in Venice on our opening hour. And today, a generation later, people are just sticking the earbuds in there. They're sitting in those same seats, but they're using the app, and they're getting all of that information without having to take physically a Rick Steves tour. Back then, we didn't have the euro. Every country had different money. And rather than waiting at the border and getting ripped off at the exchange desk, we made cash packs. Everybody got about $10 worth of local currency. They could function until they could get to a bank the next day and get a fair exchange rate. That was a lot of work because we had to put together all these cash packs, but it was our sort of passion for the efficiency. And you saw the laundry in that early minibus. A lot of our minibus heritage carried on for years in our tour program. And even with 25 people on the bus, we would have laundry day, and everybody would dump their laundry on one of our guides' beds, and then he'd put it in a big garbage bag and take it to the local laundry. And everybody that evening would prowl through everybody else's laundry. And we would have clean laundry, and anything left on the bed would be auctioned off the next morning on the bus. My groups taught me age only matters if you're a cheese, and it's never too late to have a happy childhood. And we just did a lot of fun things with our groups, but I had to remind people on the luge, that summer rotobahn where you go down the ski slopes in the summertime with a go-kart, hang onto the stick. If you don't hang two hands on that stick, if you wave at your partner when she's taking your picture, you're gonna slow yourself down by dragging your elbow on the side of that slalom curve, that concrete, and you're gonna rip off a lot of your skin. I was on a flight going home back to Seattle from Europe once, and I always meet a lot of people who've got my books, and this one said, Rick Steves, I love your book. We had a great trip, but I got to show you what my husband did. And she came with her journal, and in her journal, she had the scab of her husband. And she said, he didn't hold on to the stick like you said. I was just with a group warning them, hang on to your stick just a couple of years ago. And this man had a very painful lesson to learn. Hang on to your stick. The luge is fun. It's worth it. People don't regret it, but it can be giving you a painful souvenir. Oh, the picnics. We were, even with 25 people, the picnics we threw were amazing. We don't do picnics anymore. We do them occasionally, but back then it was a big part of our tour experience. Now we have, this is a modern tour here in Scotland. And I just took our Scotland tour a couple of years ago. And, there's the driver and the guide, and we're having taste treats, local style, but it's not really a meal. It's just a break and a chance for local treats and drinks. I was on our Sicily tour a couple of years ago, and this was a memorable picnic. Boy, it gives a food truck a whole new sort of idea. They parked it there. They set out all the beautiful Sicilian food. I'm going to have a little more Sicilian food. I guess I'm going to have one of these beautiful fish balls. These are called polpettini di pesca. Normally, this would be with swordfish in Sicily. But this is tuna, because in good Italian style, our local restaurant, La Medusa, only has local ingredients. So it's Sicilian food with local ingredients, and that is darn good. Look at that lunch. They're rugged travelers, but they know how to, they know the importance of eating well. There's another food stop in Sicily. I didn't realize there's Sicilian shots in this PowerPoint, and I'm eating Sicilian food, drinking Sicilian wine, just like these people here. That was one thing I was very impressed by in our Sicily tours, the food, the quality of the food in Sicily. But right from the start, we've wanted food to be an important part of our tours. It is, and we've got to get people out of their comfort zones. Massimo, and Monica running a beautiful restaurant in Vernazza, in the Cinque Terre. Wow. And it's just so nice when we have relationships that go back 20 years with our tour groups. And as a guide, it's one of the most enjoyable things to do, is to take our groups to a great restaurant and expose them to different slices of the cuisine. The accommodations we've inflicted on our groups have been memorable, but they haven't always been posh. Let's just put it that way. I love this place here. This is in Appenzell. Ebenalp. And it's a former lodge for pilgrims that went up to a little cave where there was a pilgrim or a hermit monk. And pilgrims would go there from all over Switzerland. And the hermit monk is long gone now, but the lodge is still there, and it houses hardy groups that come in. This is a beautiful hotel we have that we stay at for many years, right on Lake Como. And this is dear Walter's hotel. Walter just passed away. We went to his place for 30 years. And I just talked to the man who bought the hotel, and he's going to renovate it, and we're going to have a great spot to stay in Gimmelwald, as we are so thankful for. But for many years, we wouldn't all have a double room, and a lot of people would be up in the loft. That's a challenge when you're with a group. If you have 25 people, you got 16 people can stay in 8 bedrooms here. You book out the whole place, and then you got 8 people that just get stuck up in the loft on the top. It's called a Matratzenlager in Switzerland, a mattress loft. And a lot of fun happens up in the Matratzenlager. We take volunteers and people enjoy it. We have travelers that really know how to have a good time. That's one of our fine print. We don't allow grumps on our tours. No grumps. Well, this shot illustrates how high people had to climb to get to their bedroom in the hotel in Venice. No elevator. And that's one reason we like to pack light. This is our beautiful hotel of Stefan and Francoise, husband and wife who run the Hotel Champ de Mars, right next to Rue Claire, 4 blocks from the Eiffel Tower. One of my favorite things to do as a tour guide is to get to know the families that run the hotels, and as a person writing the guidebooks, get to know the families. And I've been doing it long enough where we've got the second generation now. And this is a beautiful little hotel, Albergo di Mauro, I think it's called, in Venice. And I had a tradition there of dropping in the son. I was so stressed out when the mom and dad retired, and the son, he was just as good as the mom and dad. And time again, my anxiety when there's a changing of the guard has been put aside, and the new generation is fresh, full of creativity, full of energy, and loves their niche. But I would drop by every year or two when I was updating my Venice book. And we had a tradition where I would take a photo of last year's photo with this year's book. Then I'd go back again with last year's photo, holding last year's photo, holding last year's photo with this year's book. And then I'd go again with last year's photo, and it goes all the way back. But it just illustrates what a joy it is to have an ongoing relationship with wonderful people in these great hotels, family-run hotels. It makes all the difference. Okay, I'm going to have to be careful with my time here. This is so much fun sharing this with you. I mentioned the Best of Europe in 22 days. This is it right here. That's the flagship tour. That's the one we do now. Those numbers are a reminder that you don't want a series of one-night stands. A lot of tours are called pajama tours. The bus drivers call them pajama tours. Why even get out of your pajamas? You're just going all the time. On this 22-day tour, we've only got 2 one-night stands. Everything else is 2 nights. That makes a lot of sense. It's also open jaws. Fly into one city and out of another city, you save a day not having to return, and you save the money of not having to return to your starting point. Well, now we have 40 different itineraries. So there's lots of different tours, all very smartly planned. Something I love about our tours is the fact that the guide knows how to step back. You can see the man in the back there. That's Rick. He's the guided tour of the lead tour guide. But Hansa, the long-haired guy in the middle, he is the local guide. And we love to just turn the mic over to the local guide. And here we are in Prague, where Hansa is telling the story of how the Czech people won their independence. How for 8 nights in a row, they gathered 100,000 strong in front of their president's palace, the communist president, and they all jangled their keychains, saying, it's time to go home now. And finally, on the 9th night, they got together, they jangled their keychains, and the communist dictator was gone, and they had won their freedom. Wow. I get thrilled just telling that story myself. But to hear Hansa tell it, who was there jangling his keychain, that is good travel. Again, we've been doing this long enough where we've got 2nd generation of guides. I mean, Don in the middle for years was taking our groups, and then he's slowing down now, and his partner Barry is doing the tours, and it's just a way life is. We've been doing it a long time, and we're into the next generation. Got so many good local guides. I'm so thankful for that, and it's just a great opportunity when we're traveling to give people these intimate experiences, something I really enjoy. I mean, these days I spend my time doing the guidebooks and making the TV shows and doing the research rather than leading the tours. In part, well, mainly because our guides do a better job than me. But a couple of years ago, I did a few tours, and it was really fun to get back in the saddle and see how our tour program has really progressed. I'm very proud of it. Our guides, a big part is to teach you how to travel. So we will be thinking out loud when we take you into the subway in Rome or here in the Cinque Terre. We want to teach you how to read the monitors and how to not be lost. And then people are on their own. We orient and disperse. So that's our gang of guides right there. Every year we get together. 14 months ago, I had all 100 of our guides from all over Europe, all over the world, really, gathered in my living room right here. That was the same week. People were coming down with a strange virus in Kirkland at an old folks home here. And then our guides flew home. We were euphoric about the year we were going to have. And then everything shut down. So our guides are standing by, but it's a very tough time for freelance guides in Europe. There's no work, but thank goodness things seem to be opening up. And we're ready to be there when things do. Our philosophy, be an extrovert, meet the locals. If you see 4 cute guys sitting on a bench, I've been saying this ever since I was a kid here. This is in Sicily, by the way. See 4 cute guys sitting on a bench, ask them to scoot over. They're just hanging out. Nothing else is going on. I've been saying this ever since I was a kid, and it works great. The traditional culture is alive and well. It's alive and well. In fact, I love the ceremonial bringing down of the cows and the goats. I was just on a tour just a few years ago in the Lauterbrunnen Valley, Stackelberg at the end of the valley. We had just had a beautiful hike, and we had about half an hour before dinner, so we're just in our rooms relaxing. And then I heard the tinkle, tinkle, tinkle of these cows coming down. And this is a rustic hotel. This would not be good enough for any other tour company. but it's good enough for us because we're right there in the culture. And we heard the bells ringing and we got down and we all gathered and we celebrated that tradition when the local cow herd was bringing down the cows with their bells clanging. And that tradition, that dairy farm tradition of the Swiss Alps was there, demonstrated before our very eyes. I'm really thankful that the essential joy and adventure of travel, this is me when I was a kid, just cruising the Greek Isles, that same joy, that same vivid experience is there today if you know how to find it. And that's really what we're all about. Whoa. Thank you for letting me share that. I just love Europe and I love sharing Europe. And I also love cannoli. And I want to have this cannoli. But before I eat my cannoli, I wanted to share with you just a little background on cannoli because I'm a tour guide after all. And I've got a little a video clip here, and this is in Sicily. And I would just like to take you to Sicily now and share a little bit about cannoli. And as we watch that, I'm gonna eat my cannoli. All right.
Vino was a favorite aristocratic escape back in the 19th century. Today, it's clearly the domain of the masses.
This is the town of Taormina. Taormina is an old-fashioned resort right next to Mount Etna with an amazing ancient theater, amazing views, and amazing passeggiata, and amazing cannoli.
As visitors from far and wide pack its traffic-free historic center. It's a busy evening for the passeggiata, and everyone's out enjoying the relaxed parade of Italian life. The main drag connects a series of inviting piazzas. And the balcony rewards all with staggering views. But I'm hungry for dessert.
Many people travel all the way to Sicily for the cannoli, and I can understand why. It's a true local specialty.
Bakers proudly maintain the quality that comes with tradition, and bakers earn their reputation on the quality of their cannoli, on the crispness of the crust, and on their mastery of ricotta cheese. Soft, sweet, and fresh from sheep's milk. The best are filled by hand on location, never with cream or custard. It must be ricotta.
I got some cannoli on my lip there. Well, I was eating my cannoli, and our cannoli is from a place in Lake City in Seattle, Kelly Cannoli. And this is, cannolo is the singular, O or I, depending on plural. But I can tell this place knows how to make cannoli. You gotta have a fresh pastry, that's for sure. And it's not that sweet if it's really good. Wow. Well, Gabe, I could just sit here and eat this cannoli, but I think we have some questions to answer.
We do. We have some wonderful questions tonight, Rick. But before we get to those, can we have a quick word from our sponsor?
Well, I've been giving a word from our sponsor all night, and I want to thank you for indulging me to share the fun story of our tour program. We just had a meeting with our staff. Everybody's wondering now with this news breaking out about Europe opening up again, are we going to be able to travel this summer? It's too early to get excited about it, but we hope we can. But America has to get its shots. Surprisingly, we've got people who got one shot and they're choosing not to get their second shot. What is going on with that? We need to get our shots. I got both of my shots and I'm feeling good. Our staff is getting their shots. You can have your quirky ideas. That's fine. I got my quirky ideas. But if your quirky ideas are going to keep our society down when it comes to getting a handle on this pandemic, that's not your right. I'm afraid that's just not your right. This ship cannot go until we're all on board. And the only way to get on board is to get your vaccine. So please understand that, because we want to travel again, and encourage your friends about that. We've got 15,000 people whose names are on wait list for our tours. We've got our guide standing by. We've got our hotels booked. We've got our bus driver standing by. And next month, we're hoping to start taking deposits for tours in early 2022. If things go really good, we'll be doing tours in 2021. I'm pretty confident we'll be tourism very early in 2022. I'm hopeful we'll be doing tours later in 2021. And of course, you can learn more about that just by going to ricksteves.com and checking out our website in the tour section. There you go. Gabe, you got some questions?
Yeah, and I just got my first vaccine last week, Rick, my first shot, and it was so much fun. I'm looking forward to going back. It's just a joyful place.
It's a joyful place. I mean,
yeah.
there's a joy. It's not a selfish celebration. It's our society doing something together for the greater good. And the people, the nurses are just joyful. I just thought it was a cool experience. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. So our first question, Rick, comes from Sue, and she's wondering, are you able to stay in touch with some of your tour members from those very early days?
Well, I don't make a point to stay in touch, but I've got people that I run across occasionally. Just this last week, a woman named Kathy was on our very first tour, and she heard we were going to have tonight's program, so maybe she's watching. But I enjoy meeting people from the old days. That was a long time ago. I was just a kid. For years, I was the youngest person on the bus. And but it's fun to see old. It's fun to laugh about the way we used to do our tours, frankly, because those tours would. I don't think we could sell those tours these days. I mean, people are softer these days. We're a more affluent society these days. We've got higher expectations, and I'm thankful for that.
Rick, Thomas was wondering, did you ever hitchhike while you were traveling?
Oh yeah, I hitchhiked a lot. I mean, I hitchhiked in a lot of places in whichever direction the car was coming, just to get in the car and talk to a trucker. But a lot of times I would hitchhike when there was no public transportation. So if I got to a little town and there wasn't a bus for 2 hours, this is the last train stop, and you want to get over there and there's no bus for 2 hours, stick out your thumb, you'll get there in 20 minutes.
And Rick, Stephen was wondering, how did you know when you went from, when did the shift happen from kind of your Europe in the gutter days, as you say, to Europe through the back door? When did that jump happen and what did it entail?
Well, with growth, I couldn't wing it. For a long time, I ran our tour program out of my top drawer in my office. I was doing all the other stuff, and the tours were just an aside. I didn't dream it would be a big money maker or anything like that. Sure, we'll take so many buses around, and I had a drawer, and I would get I'd spend one night a year, all from Seattle. I'd spend 8 hours on the telephone from midnight to 8 a.m., which was 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock in Europe, and I would just make all the reservations by phone, and then I would follow up with a mail, a letter. There was no internet, no faxing, no nothing. And it was hard that way. So we'd get all of our things lined up that way. And then I would give these lectures in my little studio down in Edmonds here, and we'd sell out an entire year of tours just in one night. I'd say, okay, in February 10, I'm going to call you all together. Anybody who wants to take a Rick Steves tour, I'd say the program. And then if you want to get one, I'll be back in the back room, and then just line up and boom, 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 tours are sold out. And that was just because it was limited to me and it was a minibus. I mean, I could do 5 tours, 8 people, 40 people. That was it. And then I realized there's way more demand than what I can ever do. And I can't spend 100 days a year driving a minibus. So got bigger buses and got guides. And then, then it's a little more distant from me, and I couldn't just charm people into staying in a shoddy hotel. We had to have quality, and we had to be reliable, and we had to be safe. And so we got serious. And the real turning point, Gabe, was one time I forgot to give the guide the traveler's checks to do the tour. And the guide was going to meet the group in Athens or something like that. And it occurred to me the night before the tour, the guide doesn't have any money. I forgot to give him money. And this is going to be a fiasco. So I just looked at the roster, and thank God one person on the tour was from Seattle. I called her up and I said, hi, this is Rick. It's kind of embarrassing, but you got to help me. I forgot to give the guide the money for the tour to do the tour. And I said, can I give you the traveler's checks? And she said, sure. So I met her outside of her condo, and it was middle of the night kind of, and I gave her a money belt full of traveler's checks. And then she went over with the guide to give the guide the traveler's checks, and the tour was made it. But I thought, I dodged a bullet. I got to get serious about this. Then I started hiring people to be more intentional about the tours. And now, we must have 20 people in our tour operations department, and we manage 130 guides. We just had a Zoom meeting with them last week, wonderful connection with all of our guides, getting them up to date on what's going on. We have a dozen people that sell our tours, and we have a great crew to keep things going. And I'm so thankful we've got our staff together, because we're going to get through this pandemic and do our tours. We're going to be able to throttle up as soon as the coast is clear and the ball's in our court. We got to just get healthy. We can do this.
So Rick, you bring up the staff, and Jenny was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to how you've grown your staff, how your staff has evolved.
You know, I got a business degree and I got a European history degree, and I didn't think of myself as a trained business person. I'd like to just let the business grow organically. And every couple of years, you know, we're like this little volcano that grew in the plain, and all of a sudden there's a little mountain and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger, just because we found our niche and we're doing a good work. And it gets bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger, we realize, oh, we need somebody to do that. We need somebody to do that. We need somebody to do that. And somebody goes, yeah, that's called a CFO. And, you know, that's an HR person. And yes, that would run the tech department. And I'm just going, oh, that people have already done this, but I've just done it in an organic kind of way. And I just really enjoy it. I've had the good fortune of just having wonderful people, leaders, join us who have spent their careers with us. And just this last couple of years, you know, a lot of people have been with us for 20 or 30 years and they're retiring. And that's critical. But I think, you know, Gabe, the bottom line is we're a mission-driven company. We care about our work. And I'm really, as an employer, I'm blessed with people that care about the well-being of the company, because we care about our travelers, and we have a mission to inspire Americans to broaden their perspective through travel, to venture beyond Orlando. And I think that attracts good people. People don't, you know, yeah, that attracts good people. And I'm really thankful for that. Plus, it's fun to take people around Europe, and we're surrounded by happiness, and that's a nice perk.
So Rick, we also have Ben, who is wondering, you had mentioned about organizing tours before the internet. In what ways has modern technology improved European travel experiences? And do you feel like there are any ways in which there are things that we've lost because of it?
Well, I love all of the technical innovations and modern stuff that helps us travel more. I'm all about efficiency. To me, I'm an independent traveler that takes advantage of the built-in economy and efficiency of organized travel to let independent travelers travel better. I mean, I got no contradiction between my passion for independent travel and taking a tour and sharing a bus and let somebody else doing the driving and line up good tour guides and so on. Remind me, I just have another sip of wine. Remind me,
Are there any drawbacks to modern technology?
That's right, the
Anything that
tech.
we've lost?
So over the years, we got much better infrastructure in Europe. It used to be 10 hours to go from Paris to London. Take the train, get off the train, get on a boat if it's not too wavy, get to Paris, get to France, be sniffed by dogs, get on a train, go to Paris. Now it's 2 hours, 17 minutes under the English Channel Tunnel. I mean, bam, you go from Big Ben to the Eiffel Tower in a couple of hours. It's amazing. That would be inconceivable in the old days. Bullet trains, super freeways, 15-mile long tunnels in Europe. So you get around quicker. You got, you know, access to all that information on your smartphone. You've got ATMs. I'm a big fan of ATMs. Crowdsourcing has its place. Airbnb, the language barrier is tiny compared to how it used to be. I think things are much better now for travel, but you got to be disciplined or you're going to be spending your whole trip looking at a screen, you know, and I just don't think we should be going through Europe like this. So put your screen away and be in the moment. Take advantage of the technology for what it's good for, and then put it away and then be in the elements. That's what good travel is. And that's what I like to do, is to maintain the beauty of the traditional style of travel, but take full advantage of all the efficiency. You can fly an hour cheaper than you can take the train. So why not just hop on a plane and get to Bergen in an hour and a half instead of, you know, spending 24 hours on a boat?
All right, Rick, we have time for one more question tonight. It comes from Lisa, and she's wondering if you could give one piece of advice to your 25-year-old self just starting out in Europe, what would it be?
If I could give one piece of advice,
or a couple.
find a way to take advantage of local guides. It took me a long time to realize I was just bumbling around on my own, and I was learning, but I was learning half as fast as if I had a local guide. I should have been hiring local guides to help me with my research 10 years before I did. That's one thing. The other thing, when I quit my German class, I was taking German in high school. Harry Reinert, he was my teacher. He had a handlebar mustache and he wore lederhosen, and he looked like he fell off of some Oompa band in World War I, you know. And he got me aside when I quit and he said, I was just 15 years old. He said, Steves, you'll regret this. And I had no idea I was going to be a traveler. I was going to be a piano teacher. And I regretted it. I wish I would have stuck together with my language. It would have been nice because I've had a disadvantage with my lack of language skills. But other than that, I'm pretty happy the way I played it. Hey, Gabe, thank you very much for those questions. That was great. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to remind you next week, we're going back to the videos next week, and it's going to be Europe's natural wonders. The week after that, it's my birthday. So we're going to go to my favorite places. We're going to eat and drink my favorite food and wine. And then the week after that, it's Norway's birthday. It's Independence Day in Norway. So we're going to have a Norwegian festival. And my favorite Norwegian guide, Paul, is going to join us. He's wonderful. And we'll get together and have a great 17. Mai time. So the next and I've just been working really hard. I've been laying out the next 20 weeks of Monday Night Travel. And we are just so thankful for you joining us, and we hope you have a good time. And this is our weekly rendezvous so we can celebrate our travels. I want to thank you all. I want to remind you that we're gonna be traveling again before we know it. And right now we just need to be patient. We need to take care of our neighbors, and we need to keep our travel dreams alive. So thank you very much, and happy travels, even if you're just staying home for a little while.